meeting. Just few housekeeping notes. This meeting will not be live streamed to the public due to the ongoing planning inquiry. That it will be. Oh, right. It says not here. So what you're saying it will be. Right. Ignore that. Right. Okay. It will be live streamed. Sorry. The changes in the notes. Okay. Any exempt items to the agenda? The chair will pass a resolution for the meeting to go into private, and members of the public present will be asked to leave the meeting room. And I would remind the officers and members to switch on their microphones when speaking and speak directly into the microphone, and switch off when you're finished. Officers joining via Teams meeting, please use your hands icon on your screen for questions and comments, and please turn on your camera and microphone when speaking and off when you're finished. And can I just remind everyone to switch off their mobile phones or put them on silent mode. Do we have apologies for absence?
Sorry.
Do we have?
Yes, Chair.
There you go. You got another copy. That's the oldest excuse you can get. Okay.
We have we have Councillor Wynne, who's been subbed by Councillor Stevens. We also have Councillor Fry, who's supposed to be subbed by Councillor Keynes, and we've also got apologies from Councillor Latif.
Thank you. Do we agree with the minutes of the meeting on 9th of April 2025 and 20th May 2025? Yeah. And to sign those. Thanks. Right. The only chair's update I have is there will be a private report on Luton Rising, a 10-year strategy, and there will be an additional meeting on 9th of July. So if you can make a note of that in your diaries. Are there any disclosures of interest? Can't see any hands. Any urgent business? Thank you. Any references from committees and other bodies?
None, Chair.
Right. Okay. So we move on to agenda item 7, which is on minerals and waste local plan. So over to the officers.
Thank you, Chair. A new joint minerals and waste local plan is being proposed covering central Bedfordshire, Luton and Bedford Borough. This requires an update to the Council's local development scheme for producing planning policy documents. The minerals and waste local plan is needed to ensure compliance with government policy and to ensure the needs of the construction industry are met. The undertaking of a joint review will have cost savings for the Council. OSB are being asked to support proposals to update the local development scheme to include the joint minerals and waste local plan and make any recommendations. There's an update to the report in that any recommendations from OSB will now be reported to full council, who will consider the proposals for the joint plan, not the executive. This is because a joint plan is being proposed. Central Bedfordshire are leading on the minerals and waste local plan, and Jake Kelly is here from Central Bedfordshire. So if I could just pass over to Jake, Chair, and Jake will provide a bit more detail about the process for you.
Thank you. Yes, apologise to any councillors who may have heard this spiel before from previous briefings that have been delivered across the council. So the Minerals and Waste Local Plan is a development plan document, very much like the Luton Local Plan. It goes through the same processes. It's just that it specifically focuses on minerals and waste development rather than any other sort of development activity. The last plan was adopted in 2014, so it's now getting quite old and things have moved on. Same as with the local plan, there's been changes in government and new direction on plan making and what we need to do. Equally, there have been changes in local context. Bedfordshire authorities have got new growth assumptions and new rates of growth that need to be supported by minerals and construction activities.
I just say, I know you should, yeah, you should just switched on your mic on the left-hand side. That just is important for the electronics.
Do that one. Thanks. Oh. Thank you. So, thank you. So in terms of mineral availability around Bedfordshire, we've got reserves of clay up around Bedford, sand and gravel generally around central Bedfordshire, and chalk, which is around Dunstable at Kensworth Quarry. The new local plan will ensure that we've got a sufficient supply of minerals over the foreseeable future to meet our development needs, both locally and nationally. For example, East-West Rail and all of the housing and other growth proposed around Luton and Bedfordshire. And it will also contain policies to manage development as it arises, and also policies around the restoration of quarries, for example, to make sure that they provide strategic open space functions that may, for example, be accessible to residents of Luton. In terms of timings and the way forward and the involvement of scrutiny and democratic processes going forward, we are proposing to run an issues and options, an initial consultation next summer. And before we go out for that consultation, we'll be getting committee approval to go through that. So that'd likely be executive, but equally there's an involvement for scrutiny at that stage. Following the consultation in the summer, officers at Central Bedfordshire with support from officers at Luton and Bedford Borough will prepare a draft plan, and then that will come back before committee in 2027. So again, there'll be an opportunity for scrutiny to get involved as the plan progresses and the evidence base emerges, and we produce reports as to how we've responded to community engagement and the concerns of the local population. We'll then propose to submit the plan for formal examination, and again that will be a committee decision, so there are opportunities for scrutiny to get involved in that stage. And then finally adoption, we're looking to adopt at the end of 2028, and again adoption, it would be a matter for each of the three Bedfordshire authorities and relevant scrutiny as well. So that's a little overview of the plan and the timings and the democratic involvement.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Councillor Franks?
Yeah, thanks very much for the presentation so far. I'm just a little concerned that there may not be quite enough importance being attached to the local chalk streams. Luton has a huge number of them, hundreds probably. I've personal experience of only 3 over the years that I've lived here. 2 of the houses that I've lived in had at some time a well in the garden fed from these chalk streams. And indeed the house we live in now did at one stage have a well. They are critically important to, amongst other things, the water supply, because they feed into the River Lee. I'm just concerned that there may not be quite enough emphasis being put on their importance.
Thanks. Thank you, Councillor. Yes, I can respond to that. I'm aware of the importance of chalk streams in the local area. And when we are looking at, for example, site allocations for strategic minerals and waste development, then part of the appraisal system, the routine and the method there will be considerate of environmental impacts. And I'll make a note to ensure that it covers concerns around chalk streams and all other sort of blue infrastructure that's across Bedford and Bedfordshire.
Yeah, pretty simple question. The previous government was taking away the duty to cooperate on your local plans and put in a duty to set an aligned policy in Do we know where it is yet? And we come to any agreement, or do we know what the aligned policy will be, or will that come out of the discussions over the next few months?
To respond to that one, when it comes to the duty to cooperate, however it's titled or whatever the rules are, we will be reaching out to neighbouring authorities to understand any cross-boundary matters, be it called a duty to cooperate or anything else. In terms of where we are at it with that at the moment, this is very early in the plan making stage. In fact, we haven't formally started the process other than some background work. When we go out for issues and options consultation next year, we'll be making sure that we've consulted with all relevant stakeholders outside and within the authority, and there'll be a statement to that effect.
He said the worry is, Chairman, I know you had the same worry at one time. The duty to cooperate was pretty straightforward, but this a duty of alignment is no one knows. Has any guidelines been issued yet? Does anyone know what's going on? No.
Currently, the duty to cooperate remains, so we're working under that system. In the future, the government may produce further legislation and guidance, so we'll keep an eye on government releases to see how they change the system going forward. But at the moment, today, the duty to cooperate remains in place, and actually producing the joint plan together across the three authorities will actually help meet that duty to cooperate as well at the moment.
All right.
Since Councillor Franks picked up the issue of the chalk streams, I understand no matter what we try to do under the local nature recovery strategy, we do not have enforcement powers, and with the bill going through Parliament at the moment, we could be overruled. So that protection that is being envisaged here isn't necessarily going to be the case. Would my understanding be correct?
I think that a lot of this is going to be down to changes in government regulation. For example, when it comes to issues around biodiversity net gain, which feed into local nature recovery strategy, there are changes afoot there so that a lot of developers can just pay money towards offsetting the impacts of the development for restoration elsewhere, but not actually do it on site. But then again, there's an opportunity when it comes to receipts of money through biodiversity net gain to really focus those receipts towards the strategic elements of the local nature recovery strategy to really develop the most important parts of that.
But the answer to that is that we haven't got the powers, and a legislation could be forced upon us if it was felt that was necessary to do the building to build the 1 million houses around the country.
Can't confirm the position on enforcement powers, unfortunately, not quite my jurisdiction. But what we will be doing as we develop out the plan is try and keep abreast of all of these things that are happening, and where there are opportunities to put policies in place to address a concern or an issue or a hole in what's happening at a national level, then we'll take those opportunities. And it'll be very important when we go through the consultation to identify those areas of concern that we really need to focus on. So when we're talking about local nature recovery strategy, yes, I will be making sure that the plan is in alignment with the local nature recovery strategy. And for example, if there are allocations for new quarries, then maybe within some of those broad areas, so that in future years those quarries could be restored and provide a far greater impact in the local green space infrastructure. But at the moment, I think there's a lot going on at national level. There's national development management policies coming out, which means that we may not actually be able to go as far as we want. Our hands might be somehow tied, but we'll do everything we can to address the concerns as we go through.
Thank you. My second question, Chair, if I could, it's with regard to item 7 on page 16. It talks about, quite rightly, if extraction continues at historic rates, and no new sites come forward, the minimum level of reserves will be reached by 2027, 28. It's quite clear that it will not be the same level going forward. It probably will be more. There are lots of schemes already in the planning, such as the Universal Studios. We've got the stage, we've got the football ground. We've also got our commitment to building affordable houses and other houses around the town. So I'm wondering if we need to take more seriously the mineral stocks that we're likely to have, and to seek those other sources sooner rather than later, because it strikes me that that we're going to easily reach that 2027, 28, and in fact may actually not even get to that level, because that's going to be tied up in all the building projects that are going on.
I agree with your indication there that we're likely to have a far higher greater of building activity across Bedfordshire. As you say, Universal Studios, also potential second terminal at Luton, East West Rail, etc., Tempsford Newtown as well, particularly. So I agree with you. It's likely that we are going to need to allocate more quarries to develop the minerals that we can supply and that are required. I can also confirm that while that's a site allocations and policies document, Central Bedfordshire is currently working on planning applications coming forward from existing quarries to extend their sites. So there is the development of quarries and extraction of more minerals being discussed at the moment to help sort of breach that cap.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair. Just referring to the same paragraph as Councillor Stephen, so paragraph 7 on page 16. So reference is made to the National Planning Policy Framework requiring minimum of 7 years of sand and gravel. I think the NPPF also refers to a greater period of supply of things like crushed rock. Are we in a good place to meet that requirement?
So in terms of the other requirements, there's a 7-year requirement to have a land bank for sand and gravel. You're right with crushed rock, but in Bedfordshire, there's only one source of crushed rock at the moment, which can't be reported for commercial confidentiality reasons, but it's a very low level of activity, and it's unlikely that we will need to look to allocate more land to extract any more. There's also a requirement for additional land banks of a special type of sand called silica sand. That's a 10-year land bank as well requirement. And there are reserves of silica sand, especially around Leighton Buzzard. And as part of the plan review, we propose to commission expert independent study on silica sand to see whether or not we actually do need to give that specific consideration. At the moment in Leighton Buzzard, a lot of the companies who extract sand, including silica sand, are a bit hazy about how much of it's silica sand, how much of it's aggregate sand, and they quite often change their minds about what the classification of their reserves are. So it's a little bit of a murky waters in Bedfordshire, exactly how much silica sand reserves we got. But we're going to commission a study to see whether or not we need to actually develop a separate land bank, or maybe the situation is that silica sand reserves around Bedfordshire and around Leighton Buzzard aren't that pure or clearly defined, and maybe we don't need to go down that route because there isn't a strategic significant reserve of that mineral in the area. But we'll be looking at that.
Very much. Any other questions? Right. We are asked to note and support the proposal. Do we all agree?
Agreed.
Thank you. Next agenda item is OSB work program, which is, you'll find that in your pack at the back. Any questions or any comments on? Yeah, David.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. I see the inclusive economy strategy due to go to the executive on the 8th of September. Just think that could usefully come to OSB beforehand if that's possible.
Can we request for that to come to OSB? Angela?
Yeah.
Yep.
I think it should be programmed in to come to the July OSB meeting. But when I sent out the agenda, we hadn't identified a date to bring that forward, but it will be programmed on for the July meeting. Okay.
Thank you. Any other comments? No? Next report is on waste disposal. It was task and finish group. This is, I hope that you've read it. It's for information only. And if you want to ask any questions, we're going to always ask for that report to come back. Yeah, Tom?
A large percentage, not a lot, a percentage of the final contract was for social payback and all that kind of, I think it's about 20%, 10% and 10% for environmental, 10% for, different schemes around the borough. Could we have a report back how that 20% is going to be spent and where it's going to be spent?
The decision of the task and finish group to support the move to incineration was on the basis that the only real substantial advantage of incineration is that it pretty much eliminates the methane emissions. And we specifically asked that executives should look at alternatives to incineration because of the other emissions that incineration produces, many of which are too small to be filtered out of their emissions. So, I mean, I don't, there was a very clear view that incineration was not, in the view of the task and finish group, the ideal answer. It's just that it was slightly better than landfill because it eliminated the methane. So it would be good to have some information about what efforts are being made to find alternatives to incineration.
Well, David Franklin just said, because one of the things that come out of incineration is the PCPs what come out into the atmosphere, and we have to pay a separate tax on that. I started discussions with the officers 2 or 3 weeks ago for another job to see if there's a way we can avoid sending those plastics, the plastic bottles and that, for incineration. If we can do that by putting together a deposit scheme or some kind of scheme in Luton where the voluntary group can collect those bottles, all it can do is save us money. So rather than me be running backwards and forwards, I'd be helpful if the officers come back as part of that report to see if there's any options available for a collection scheme in the town or voluntary groups to collect aluminium and the plastic bottles with a deposit scheme. My view was the £1.5 million we pay in tax for the particulates going into the atmosphere. If we can stop those particulates going into the atmosphere by paying the deposit scheme and selling the plastic on, it could only be a good thing. So they're working out the figures, and that'd be handy if we had that included in the report when it comes back, so we can see it if there is a way forward.
Stevens?
Whilst I understand that this is an issue and a very good work done by the task and finish group, what is missing from this now? Because I'm not quite sure if this form was what's going into the report, the later report. But as you probably know, Chair, that there's been a lot of discussion from residents in Kingsway very recently about the problems emanating from the depot. And there's been an undertaking, as I understand it, that there will be some discussion, some inquiry into the possibility I say, of moving the depot. at some point. Now, it wasn't perhaps in the purview of the task and finish group at that time. Maybe the major problems perhaps have arisen since. But I'm wondering how that is going to be taken into account when we get to the next stage. That's the first point. The next point was really to do with green waste recycling. And there's a point in there that says, you know, because we're an urban environment and not so much, green space, et cetera, that we probably generate about 10% recycling from green waste. I'd like to know, since we have put in the charge for the green waste bins in the town, how much we have lost. Because if I take my own road in particular, it used to be full of people having green waste bins. That is no longer the case. You probably see one or two out there. So our contribution to the recycling of green waste, I would claim, has gone down significantly. So not only are we not reaching the 10%, but I would actually say that we're probably going now below it, because we're not recycling as much green waste as a town as we used to.
Okay, so you want to understand
I want to understand the
implications.
of the charge
Yeah.
that it had on our ability to generate recycled green waste by households in the town.
Sure. Okay. Thank
And like the way Councillor Stevens faces his questions, number one, I think it's in this report or elsewhere, there's been absolutely no drop off on green waste, on waste collection at all. Even though we put it up, the figures are the same. And that is one you could ask officers on. So if we're going to be cooperative on scrutiny, let's not play political games. And the one what worries me about the central depot is dead straightforward. It's not just waste. It's BTS, it's antiquities, all that kind of stuff. We've got to find an home. The one thing what Councillor Stevens has said is where we're going to find the £10 million to replace the depot with. That's a long-term project. Absolutely nothing to do, the central depot, with the waste contract, which is what we're talking about now. The waste contract was for collection and disposal of the waste, not the waste transfer stations, nothing else. And that is very naughty over the green waste, when you've been told on numerous occasions there's been absolutely no drop-off at all.
I welcome Chair Councillor Shaw's intervention, which is sometimes unnecessary, like in this particular case. I had a perfect right to ask that question. It wasn't a political question. It was, I'm very keen on recycling around the town. It was mentioned as part of that report. I therefore have a perfect right to ask that question and to get the answer through one of the officers, Chair, not through another member of the scrutiny.
Yeah. Can we stick to the agenda, and asking for performance is reasonable, and we'll put that into the report. Thank you. Councillor Hanif, and then you.
Yeah, just a quick one. I think it's important we need to carry on the years, in the vein of sticking to the reports, and also not referring to anecdotal evidence or individual interpretation. I think Councillor Shaw made a perfectly valid point, because it's no point playing politics here, because we're talking about environmental issues, previous generation, and Councillor Franks made a really valid point about I oppose incineration. These are the kind of debates we should be happening about what benefits all of our communities in that. And I think we should avoid, making points and digressing from what is in front of us. Thank you.
Can I just make a comment about before Jeroen comes in? Look, anything that is discussed in scrutiny is not about politics. It's about everyone having the right to ask that question and clarification. Tom, this is not the chambers. This is scrutiny meeting. And everyone has the right to ask questions, and then this will be taken forward. And asking for performance is a legitimate question. So let's not try to have a war here, or let's not try to blame everything on politics. So that's what I wanted to just get that right. Sure.
Thank you. One thing I just wanted to add to what both these councillors have raised in terms of the green recycling. In one way, we are seeing that the people are being a bit more efficient, whereas we had one bin per household, the brown bins, that was being collected, whereas now we get neighbours that are sharing the cost. So really, in effect, the charges have kind of introduced a new way of efficiencies, in my opinion. So I see people on my own neighbourhood where they're sharing bins because it's not enough for one person to fill a bill for, just one bill. So they're sharing the cost as well as sharing the bin space, which in my opinion is a lot more effective, and it is encouraging recycling a lot more because people are asking their neighbours, shall we contribute to one bin being collected between maybe 2 or 3 households, and they vary or base it on their own garden sizes. So I think that's actually quite an efficient way. So I can understand what you're saying, but I do think that people have used their initiative to make things a lot more efficient and therefore recycle a lot more than what they used to.
Councillor Hussain?
I don't think members can ask any question in terms of performance. We have a right to ask that. How are we doing? But talking about waste transfers and all that, the Task and Finish group looked at it over a considerable amount of time, and they come back and done this report. And I think we need to be looking at their recommendation, what they're saying, and then adopting essentially to the executive, adopting that, and going forward, what is it that we do need to improve that waste transfer service in the future?
I agree. We need to be objective, focused on what's on the agenda. And, you can scrutinize if there's anything missing. That's our purpose. If there's anything missing, or you think that you can add value and pass recommendation, that's what this meeting is about. And we can leave everything else at the full council meeting and be political, but be objective in this meeting. Thank you. No?
Sorry, I'm going to put the cat amongst the pigeons. Given what we've just recently discussed, and going back to a colleague on the other side saying about the Kingsway depot, I know the event that the council is talking about, where we had a number of residents there complaining about the waste transfer depot, where they have lorries lining up the whole of Kingsway, the smell coming out of those lorries, and the waste, how it's being managed, and their houses, even before the summer sort of comes in, are filled with flies. They've been to petition board. I would like to know if there's any way of actually asking the new contractor to actually provide us with more information of how they're managing their logistics, so that it has as less effect on people who are residing in that area.
Ask them to see what plans they have to make it more environmental friendly. Yeah. Okay, so there's no any items for private, and I think with that in mind, that is the last item agenda, and we'll draw the meeting to a close. So have an early evening. Thank you.